The latest war in the airline industry is not over fares. It's actually over seat space. At least 3 in-flight fights have broken out between passengers when one person tried to recline their seat. All 3 times the flights have been diverted. Now, it all started more than a week ago when this guy, his name is James Beach, he used a gadget called a knee defender on a United flight. It actually keeps the person in front of you from leaning back, and it is banned by U.S. Airlines. But the other passenger thought that her seat was broken. When he owned up to having that knee defender and took it off, he says that she rapidly reclined, nearly breaking his laptop, so he pushed her seat forward and put the knee defender back on. That's when she got mad, threw Sprite on him. The pilot diverted the plane to Chicago. Both passengers were pulled off the flight. Now, Beach called it surreal and says that he's, quote, pretty ashamed and embarrassed by what happened and that he could have handled it so much better. On reclining seats, though, he says, you have the right, but it seems rude to do it.
All right, Mark Drush is in. He's a former airline executive, frequent flyer, flies all the time. And I got to tell you, I have been mystified with what he said right at the end. I posted some stuff on Facebook. This whole business of reclining your airline seat is rude. I've seen that everywhere. Where is that coming from?
I don't know where that's coming from, other than people are starting to say, hey, I don't like having your head in my face. But it's not rude. Those seats are designed to recline, and they don't recline real far. It isn't as though they're sitting in your lap. They recline about 2 to 4 inches, depending on the seat and where you are. So I really think you may have hit it on the head. It could have been the temperatures that were driving people a little crazy today.
I don't get it. I was having a conversation in our newsroom last night, and a producer said, I like to put the table down and rest, and then they come into my space. Like, your space?
Yeah.
Okay, so the seats go back, what, 3 or 4 inches?
Yeah, 2 to 4,
the
depending.
one in front goes, and you have that same right?
Yep.
So whose space is whose space?
Well, you know, it really comes down to this. The only space you really bought is the space that your butt is sitting in, full stop, okay? Everything else is sort of the global space. So it all depends on how you want to treat your fellow passengers. And you know what? If somebody is trying to do something, you know, they're trying to prepare a drink for their child or something, you lean back, that is, hey, you can say to them, hey, you know, I'm trying to take care of something, could you wait a moment? You don't have to be rude about it. That's what I think mystifies me more than anything, is why are people being so rude? Because there's no reason to be rude. A simple, hey, do you mind, I'm trying to do something, would probably have resolved that. He even said that himself.
And it's funny, some of the attitude, and I don't know, I don't really get it, but it's like, I don't recline my seat, I don't eat meat. I drive an electric car. It's you know, I don't do that, and I'm better than you for it. All right, I talked with an American Airlines flight attendant today, 25 years experience. He's pretty much seen it all. He said he blamed it on 2 things. We can kind of move through this. Number 1, he says the airlines drive to make money and put a price tag on everything and have seats in coach that are tight and a little further forward. You get a little more room if you pay for it. And he just says that whole cattle hauling system and every seat is sold out now has contributed to this. You agree?
Yeah, I agree, but keep in mind a couple of data points. I looked at some numbers recently. Over the last 5 years, the average airline fare has only gone up 2% versus inflation. So it really hasn't moved in 5 years. Well, how have the airlines been able to keep your fare?
You pay $30 more for it.
Exactly,
because you pay $50 for that
so
bag.
if you want a real cheap, if you want cheap bare bones, you can get the cheapest fare out there. If you want a little more comfort, you can pay a little bit more.
And that's what he says. People want to get first class seat for $149.
Yeah.
And
you don't walk into Neiman's expecting to buy a pair of shoes for the same price as you would at Macy's. It's just that simple. You decide where you're going to go and you pay. If you're 6'5" and you're not trying to buy more room on a seat, shame on you.
Okay, interesting. He also put blame on flight attendants. He said, hey, when I'm in one of these situations, I become the bad guy. He says, no, you don't get to, they can recline as much as you want, that's the rule. And if you cause a problem, you're off. He says, I become the bad guy because he says the flight attendants who say, would you mind not reclining? And then they say, no, I want to recline. Then it pits these 2 against each other, and then he's got a war.
Well,
it sounds interesting to me.
It's interesting, and particularly coming from a flight attendant, but keep in mind, if the flight attendant hadn't been rude and it said, look, you got to pull your seat up full stop, somebody would have complained about, oh, this rude flight attendant. So flight attendants can't win or lose in terms of that battle.
He's got 25 years, so he
might
he's
have
in a better position.
But here's what the traveling public has to remember. You're on an airplane. The flight crew ultimately dictates what you can and cannot do. That is a federal law.
Right.
So if the flight attendant or the cockpit said, move your seat forward, you better do it. Otherwise, expect to land in jail.
Right.
So
Either
on
way,
an
or stop
airplane,
being obnoxious and kicking
exactly.
the seat.
On an airplane, you have to remember, ultimately, they're the authority, and you have to listen to them. And the other part, too, give everybody a little credit. We are so burned from what happened in 9/11. Everybody is worried about, I don't know if this person that's causing a problem is perhaps going to go wild and try to do something to airplanes. So remember that we live in a different world today.
Civility. We've lost
It's gone.
I do have one last thing. Wouldn't these people who have forced landings has not been punished? They have not been. I mean, you find somebody $10,000, that ends this whole game, doesn't it?
Yeah, it should. It should. I'll tell you, I'd throw somebody in jail for a day. I'll tell you, you find out you go in jail for that, you're not going to be screwing around.
No matter what side you're on,
no matter what
behavior
side.
stops.
And imagine those other passengers on board. Their flights have now been delayed. They got to their location. They may have missed their connecting flight. I would be really mad if I was one of those passengers.
Yeah, this beach fella said is the